الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونستنصره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله سبحانه وتعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له قيوم السماوات والأرض شهادة الحق شهادة تطهر قلوبنا من الفسق والعصيان وشهادة تنجي قائلها من عذاب أليم وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا إمام المجاهدين وخاتم الأنبياء أجمعين محمدًا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه الذي أرسله رحمة للعالمين وصلى الله تعالى وبارك عليه وعلى آله وكل من تبع هداه واستمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد فيا عباد الله رحمكم الله أوصيكم ونفسي بالتقوى فقد فاز المتقون إن الله تبارك وتعالى وصانا قائلا وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقون يا أولي الألباب قال الله تعالى في كتابه الجليل يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون ورسولنا المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وصانا قائلا اتق الله حيثما كنت وأتبع السيئة الحسنة تمحوها وخالق الناس بخلق حسن. Brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for uncountable blessings. At every moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us many blessings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our minds and our hearts that we can appreciate Him, so we can be included among those who are grateful for the many blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing us with. Brothers and sisters, 2 days ago, worldwide, there is a celebration called Human Rights Celebration. People are celebrating human rights. Beautiful concept. I would like to talk today about what Islam says in regard to human rights. Because one of the accusations that have been leveled, have been given, have been accused about this religion, that Islam does not give rights to the people. Now let me begin by acknowledging that unfortunately, sadly, it is sad, painful to say, but it is true, that we Muslims, particularly those who are living in the Muslim world, need to learn not about human rights, but about our religion in reference to human rights. Our failure to understand the deen and Islam itself makes Muslims fail to practice and to uphold highly what's so-called human rights. When it comes to the issue of Islam and human rights, I can assure you that there is no historically, in the history, that has given the rights, which is basic right, to everybody more than Islam itself. And we can be proud of it. If we study the history thoroughly and carefully, from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he was in Makkah, then he moved to Medina, to the time of Khulafa al-Rashidin. It reminds us about Umar radiallahu anhu entered into Jerusalem, Khalid ibn Walid in Syria, Amr ibn As in Egypt. It reminds us all this history that how Muslims guarantee the rights of everybody. It is not about political and social issues for us as Muslims, but more importantly, it's an issue of faith. Because we do believe that Islam guarantees the basic rights of humanity, of everybody. Brothers and sisters, what are the rights that Islam guarantees? I would like to mention some. And let me begin by one that every human being is sharing, and that is the right to living itself. It's the right of life. Life in Islam, my brothers, is a sacred. And the Holy Quran is very clear that taking life of one soul without any justification is just like equal to taking the life of all humanity. Killing one, whatever the justification which is not Shari'i justification that people use, taking life, it is a violation to the basic human rights. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, imagine in the time of battlefield, in the time of war, it's not a peaceful situation. In the time of war, that it is still possible to save the life of human being, that you have to save the life of human beings. A Sahaba was basically humiliated by his enemy, and at the same time he was overcoming the enemy. He put his sword in his chest, and this person said to him, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, means I'm giving up, I accept what you want. But according to his understanding, he was forced by circumstance. He didn't accept that out of his own willingness, so he killed. When Rasulullah ﷺ knows about that, he was so angry. And he said, why did you kill him? He said, because he said that out of fear. He was not sincere. And Rasulullah ﷺ said to him, Hal shaqaqta min qalbi? Did you open his chest? Rasulullah ﷺ was so angry because he's taking the life of a person. Even the life of animals, my brothers. Look at Rasulullah, how he was angry when he saw some Sahaba burning a house of ants for no reason. The life of animals. That's why, my brothers, every human being has the right to live. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-muhyi wal-mumit. He's the one who is giving life, and he's the one who has the right to take the life. He's al-muqbid, he's the life taker, and no one else without any shari'ah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala justified in this thing. This is number one, my brothers and sisters, but unfortunately, due to some international political situation, that some Muslims are blinded, are so easily violating the sacredness of the life of humanity. And that's why we have to come back, because our failure to understand this thing makes us acting out of the right track. And Muslims must come back to the right track. This is number one, the right to living. Number two is the right to believe. Believing is a part of human nature. Even those who say, I am an atheist, I don't believe. That's what they believe is. If they say, I don't believe, they don't believe is the belief itself. Because that is the nature of human beings, to believe in something. But we cannot force anybody to believe on something. And that's why even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. You want to believe, believe. You want to disbelieve, disbelieve. It is about responsibility. We believe in this day, my brothers and sisters, not because someone else forces us. This is not because our parents are Muslims, we are born Muslim. We believe in this religion because we are freely accepting as our faith. And that is the stand of Islam. When we see some others believing in something else, we don't have any right to force them to believe in what we're believing. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Holy Quran clearly. La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in the religion. We may disagree with those people who believe in something else, but at the end of the day, we say that it's your responsibility, this is my responsibility. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. Your faith is yours and my faith is mine. But the point here, my brothers and sisters, that there is no one has the right to to force anybody to believe in something, including to believe in any religion. Rasulullah SAW has been reminded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many places in the Holy Quran. Because as a messenger, he wanted everybody to believe in his mission, al-Islam, as a messenger. So he is kind of sad. He feels kind of pain in his heart that seeing people rejecting al-Islam. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, مَا عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your responsibility is nothing more than preaching, nothing more than conveying, nothing more than telling them what Islam is all about, and the rest is their hands and in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's position. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ You don't have any sort of authority to force them to accept Islam. That's why, my brothers and sisters, when someone accuses Islam as the religion that forces others to become Muslims, that is simple and ignorance. This is the basis in the Holy Quran. Freedom of religion, freedom of faith is guaranteed in Islam. And that's why if you study the Muslims who enter into any city, they never force the people to accept Islam. We never heard about that. Brothers and sisters, this is number 2. Number 3 is freedom to worship. It is haqqul ibad. Worship is a basic human right. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, that's what we believe is the truth. Others are worshiping others, it is their right to worship. Although we disagree, and we consider that invalid worship. But it's their right to worship. There are some people worshiping cows, they're worshiping rivers, they're worshiping different idols. But the fact is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Holy Quran, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ and it is talking about worship basically in the beginning. That the Makkans, Quraysh, want Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to join them in their worship. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that in the Holy Quran, say no. لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ do your worship. But let Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his people do their own worship. But the point here, my brothers and sisters, that there is a guarantee of worship in Al-Islam. This is number 3 because of the time. Number 4, my brothers and sisters, is the freedom of thought. The freedom of fikr, the freedom of thinking. Alhamdulillah, we study in the history, because of this basic teaching of Al-Islam, Muslims in the past have been able to establish the highest level of human civilization. And Al-Islam came down to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the first time, commanding him to open his mind. Iqra is not reading just letters, but it's about exercising our minds, our brain. Open up your horizon, open up your vision. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam obligates every Muslim to learn. But more importantly, if you go back to the history of humanity, to the history of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed the angels, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً Allah told the angels that He is creating a human being. The angels responded. The angels, imagine the angels responded. And their response is a kind of, if I may say, a kind of negative, because they were questioning the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in creating a human being. قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. Oh Allah, are you creating someone who is going to fight and shedding blood, who's going to make mischief and destructions on this land? And you see what's happening now. To some extent, the angels were right. But look at that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, don't talk. Or maybe in the language of some young people, shut up. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. Simply says, it's okay, you express your opinions, but you have to understand that I know better than you. I know what you don't know. But He didn't say don't express your opinions. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, expression of thinking is a basic human right. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, and he was prepared by him to be thinking. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had prepared that human being to have the freedom of thinking, to know everything, although he is limited. My brothers and sisters, this is number 4. The next one is freedom of expression. Freedom of expression. Imagine Iblis la'natullah alayh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of course knows what he's going to do to his servants. When Iblis la'natullah alayh asked him, "Ya Allah, give me a long life, ila yawm yub'athun, until the day of judgment." And he expressed that, لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ, I am going to mislead them all. He himself expressed that freely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am going to mislead all your servants until the day of judgment. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did, he said, what you ask, you get it. Because that's what his expression. His expression is evil thing, misleading human beings. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still respect that. That is the right of expression. My brothers and sisters, today we see the comparison, the difference between people who respect human expression and those who do not respect. Here in America, in the last few days, you see there is a racial problem. People consider that racial problem because of the police killings, some blacks, and it's considered discriminations against the colored people. Demonstration happened anywhere, but they didn't see that much blood shed. You don't see that much killings. If this kind of demonstration, very sad to say, it's painful, but we have to criticize ourselves. If this kind of demonstration happens in a Muslim country, you see many will be killed. Look at what happens in Asia. Look at what's happening in many parts of the Muslim world today. The people are expressing themselves and they got killed. That is the expression that needs to be respected, my brothers and sisters. Everybody is talking about democracy, but when it comes to their own interest, they don't respect the expression of other people. Many Muslims have been killed by their own Muslim governments because they express themselves. And this is what Islam guarantees, my brothers and sisters. Expression of human expression. Brothers and sisters, the next one that I would like to mention is about freedom of human dignity. Human dignity, al-karama al-insaniyya, al-izza al-insaniyya, is not a social given dignity. It is not being given by any king or any president. It is being given by himself, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that clearly in the Holy Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Everybody has been born with dignity. And the moment that dignity is taken away by anybody, that person is going to be rebellious. Human dignity is an essentiality of a human's life. You can give them money, you can give them job, you can give them whatever they want, but if you take away the dignity from them, they will be painful. Because that is an essentiality of human soul. That's why, my brothers and sisters, Umar Allahu anhu, when his governor, the son of his governor, hit somebody simply because he was defeated in the horse race. They're racing a horse race. And this happened to be a Jewish guy from Egypt. He went to Medina. And he reported what the governor's son did to him. Umar Allahu anhu listened to him very carefully. And he said to him, stay here in Medina with me. So he stayed in Medina with Umar, Khalifa. The person who ruled from Medina to Jerusalem. He said to that Jewish guy, young guy, stay with me here. And he called the governor and his son from Medina. When the governor arrived, he said, what your son have done? And he acknowledged that he had this guy. And Umar Allahu anhu gave him the stick. And he said to this guy, to this Jewish guy, hit him back. That is the human dignity, my brothers. That Umar Allahu anhu was very tough in establishing the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. given the dignity, even a Jewish guy, because his dignity had been taken away by the son of the Muslim governor in Egypt at that time. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, again, everyone has been born with dignity, and no one has the right to take the dignity from anybody. The last one that I'd like to mention is about the right to freedom, my brothers and sisters. Haqqul Hurriyyah. Freedom is very essential in our life. And as I mentioned many times repeatedly, when we talk about La ilaha illallah in our theology, in our deen, La ilaha illallah necessitates freedom. Necessitates freedom. When we say La ilaha illallah, but we don't understand the concept of freedom, then it means we have to learn again what does it mean to be understanding, to be holding La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah means that we are free. No one enslaves us except the one who created us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that freedom, my brothers and sisters, necessitates responsibility at the same time. Because there are some Muslims also unfortunately say that freedom means there is no limits. Everything in here in this dunya has limits, my brothers. When you come to the freedom of expression, for example, you can express yourself to your neighbors, you want to say to your neighbors everything that you want, but when you come to the right of neighbors, then you cannot say it. Last time when someone made the cartoon, the picture, cartoon of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some say that this is freedom of expression. Okay, we respect freedom of expression, but freedom of expression doesn't mean that you insult others. Freedom of expression doesn't mean that you put down others. Freedom of expression doesn't mean that you're violating the right of others. And that's why freedom necessitates responsibility. And that's why La ilaha, it is not the end, but illallah. And illallah means with full responsibility. My brothers and sisters, these are some basic of freedom, human freedoms in Islam, basic human right in Islam. As people celebrated it, alhamdulillah, we Muslims must understand that Islam guarantees the human right. And we have to be proud of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen our faith. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله فاستغفروه لعلها ساعة إجابة. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين. الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين سيد الأولين والآخرين حبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, it is truly difficult to guarantee freedom of others, because normally when we talk about rights, it also necessitates responsibility. Everybody is fighting for his own or her own rights. Husband and wife, normally husband wants rights, but they forget their responsibility. Wives want rights, but they forget as wives they have responsibilities. Nowadays in our world we have a lot of human rights organizations, but there is no human responsibilities organization. So people want rights, but they forget their responsibilities. When you see to what is happening in the Middle East, our brothers and sisters in Palestine, for example, it's about responsibility. Because our Palestinian brothers and sisters want their rights, the basic rights, freedom. And it's difficult to imagine how they live their life without freedom. It's a basic human right. So how dear we are talking about right, responsibility, and freedom, while some people are still don't get their freedom. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, we need to live our values. We need to live by our values. Long time ago, when our Muslim community wanted to establish a mosque near Ground Zero, 2 blocks from Ground Zero, very controversial, 70% of New Yorkers rejected it. I had an opportunity to sit down during the iftar dinner with the mayor, and I asked him, because he supported that. And I said, Mr. Bloomberg, you are the mayor of this city. 70% of you people rejected it. How come you support this? And he said, I do not support the right of the Muslims, neither Islam. So what do you support? He said, I am supporting my constitution here in this country that guarantees the rights of everybody to practice. That is the American value, and we want all Americans, including us, Muslims, living here in this country, to understand that this is the value that needs to be upheld highly. It's too much concept. We need just to implement it. This country has beautiful values. Just our leaders here in this country need to respect those values. As we Muslims also. Islam is so beautiful. Just we Muslims need to live by our teaching. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Allahumma rabbana lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika al-karim wa 'azimi sultanik. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك ويا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا لطاعتك. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر كل من جاهد في سبيلك واجعلنا منهم يا رب العالمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. وسبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. واقم الصلاه.